let's get underway, and I probably have some students joining us here as we get into the presentation, but we recognize that some students are coming all the way across campus. You might be a little late. So, I'm Gene O'Hara, the director of the Monfort Executive Professor Program here at the College of Business, and it's my pleasure to get to introduce our speaker today. There are some topics in our society that are of interest to everybody because they're so global in impact. Healthcare, taxes, education, and homeownership is one of those that impacts everybody. And in fact, as you wrap up your education here at UNC and you move into your career and so forth, homeownership is going to be one of the biggest monthly budget items you have. It's going to be one of the biggest investments you make in your life. And it's going to be one of those issues that will have a major impact on quality of life in your family, for yourself, where you live, how you live is going to be so important. So, homeownership, real estate, economics are important to all of us. And that's why we've invited our speaker today. Margaret Kelly is the CEO of RE/MAX, the international corporation level. Covers all of the U.S. and up to 100 countries, foreign countries, where RE/MAX is involved. So, very knowledgeable on what's happening in the real estate economy here in the U.S. and around the world. But let me tell you a little more about her. She was recognized recently by the industry as one of the most powerful woman in real estate. She serves on the Kansas City branch of the Federal Reserve Bank. So she's got a vast background in our national economy and what's happening to it. So she's here because of her knowledge of the real estate market, but she's also here because she has a very interesting story to tell about her journey from working in a manufacturing facility to being an international corporate executive. And I think her story is so relevant to the students here that are preparing to wrap up your education, move out into your career. I think you'll really enjoy some of her comments about her life story. She holds a bachelor's of business administration and finance and accounting from Walsh College in Troy, Michigan, and started with RE/MAX as a financial analyst in 1987. She's been there for a long time. She's worked her way up, and if you get a chance to see the Greeley Tribune paper today, it's typed in there, I think she said 11 different titles over those years with RE/MAX. So her accomplishments have to do with hard work, accountability, and it's very impressive. I think she's a great role model for all of us on what is achievable with hard work. So, please help me welcome to the podium Margaret Kelly, CEO of RE/MAX.
Around for you, who are you going to use? Okay. That was subtle, very subtle of me to say. You get to use that. So here's what I thought I would do is, I sit there and I smile when, I'm on the Federal Reserve Board and all of these different things because, I'm still Margaret. And it's nice, but usually when people meet me, title gets in the way. Because you say, all right, oh wow, she's a CEO, or she does this, or she does that. So, to bring myself back to being humble, I thought I would share with you a few pictures of me growing up, so you know, yes, I was young too, and exactly where you are. So, this is kind of fun. See, I'm the cute little one, third one over, coming up to Christmas. My question is, how many of you, I I grew up in Detroit. Did you guys ever put out a regular sock when you woke up in the morning you had your Christmas stocking full of stuff? No? Anybody? Or is that just, okay, good. All right, thank you. Because I've never done that with my own children, and I always wondered, why do we do that? So you have all 6 of us. So to give you a little history of myself, how I got started, and the incredible journey that got me here right now. So very quickly, I'm the youngest of 6 children. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. 5 girls, 1 boy. My mother was an at-home mom. My dad worked in a very small factory that he owned. Growing up, when all of us, 5 girls, 1 boy, my father could not afford to pay men, the guys that worked in the factories, because it was such a tiny little shop that he had. So my brother, my sisters, and I worked in the factory. That is a photo of the factory. That was about the entire size of it. And actually in there's my dad, just really small. And we had to work there. I hated every second of this. Yes, that's me at 15 years old, cutting steel. We made nuts and bolts. I mean, big hexagon nuts that you screw onto bolts. I started when I was 12. And I worked there until I was 22 years old. This is before cassette tapes, you know, albums, 45, no. This is before cassette tapes, this is before iPads or anything else that you could listen to. So the only thing we could do is we took little pieces of toilet paper, shoved them in our ears because it was so noisy, we couldn't talk to each other, and I sat at the machine 8 hours a day doing this stuff. It was, I hated it. My mother would come and knock on the door every Saturday morning and say, honey, your dad wants you to go to work. And I would pray that he would forget he had 6 children. I didn't want to go, I hated it. I sat in the car, my arms were crossed, I looked out the window and I was going to show my father I was not going to talk to him. Years later, I found out how much he enjoyed the silence. I thought I was teaching him a lesson. But it was interesting because that's where I learned my work ethic and where I learned just to never give up. I'll give you an example. One machine that I had to work on, it was a drill press, so it would sit right here. And I would have to take 1 nut, pull a drill on it, it would kind of clean out the edge of the hole that was in the nut, and then it would fall into a bin. And I so wanted to have a Saturday off. I had to work there, by the way, every Saturday, every summer vacation, every Christmas vacation, period. That's what Dad said, and that's what we did, and half of whatever I made went to the house, to, you know, the family. And so anyway, I'm standing at this machine, and on this side of the machine was 100,000 pieces of bin. And on this side of the machine, you got it, an empty bin. And I would sit there, and I would do this all day long, just with my own thoughts. And I got so frustrated one time, and I complained to my father, and I said, look at this, I'm never, ever going to get this done. Of course, I was kind of a whiny 13-year-old at the time, so take it into account. But I had this bin, and my father looked at me and he said, Margaret, you're looking at the wrong side of the machine. I said, what? He said, if you only look at the side of the machine of the things that you don't have and what you haven't accomplished, you will never be happy in your life. If you look at this side of the machine and how much you have accomplished and what you do have done, you're going to be a lot happier. Celebrate your successes along the way. You know, it's a pretty darn good lesson that he learned, or that he taught me. And I have never, ever forgotten that. So, you know, moving forward, oh, that just so cracks me up. By the way, that smile was a lie. Because, what was the camera called where the photo shot out? Polaroid. I'm looking at you. Yeah, right. Because he's not going to know. Polaroid. So my dad's like, got the new Polaroid. He's, come on, smile. I don't think I ever smiled that big when I was running those machines at work. But he took that, and it makes me laugh now. So one of the things, too, is, as I said, youngest 5 girls, 1 boy. And I sat at the machine and I dreamed, how do I get out of here? This is not what I want to do with my life. And I went to my parents and I decided I want to go to college. And my parents said, no, Don't go to college, just get married and have kids. So take shorthand in high school, and that's all you need to do. And so my brother went to college and got a 4-year degree. My other 4 sisters did not. But being the youngest, and I just had something inside of me that said, there's more. I know I want more. I had no idea what it was, but I thought college was going to get me there. And so I actually used a little reverse psychology on my parents, and I started bringing home brochures of colleges that were out of state and all these cool things. And the reality is, because I had no examples, all I wanted to do was go to a local community college and get an accounting degree, a 2-year accounting degree. And I brought all these brochures home, and finally my parents looked at me and said, all right, if you're that serious about it, you can go to the local community college. That's exactly what I wanted to do. So I looked at home, I walked to community college, and got a 2-year accounting degree, and my goal was to be a bookkeeper. A clean, quiet job. I thought this was so awesome. But I had surrounded myself with people who actually were going to go on and get a 4-year degree. And I kind of looked at them and I went, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And so I applied to a local university, Walsh College, I should say, and got accepted. And I went on and got my bachelor's in business administration and finance, so finance and accounting. And all this time I had no examples because, yes, my brother went, but he was a guy, guys were supposed to go. But there weren't any women. And I met my husband when I was there. My father laughed at me and said, wow, you got 2 degrees. You got your BBA and your MRS. Think about it for a minute, women. MRS. Mrs. Okay. So I got 2 degrees. My husband, boyfriend proposed, and we moved to Colorado immediately following college. And it was interesting because, again, no family out here, no examples. What am I going to do? I had this tremendously big blank canvas is all I could picture it. And I had been given this palette of colors through college. And now what was I going to paint my life to be? And I really didn't have an idea or an example. So started to work for Presbyterian St. Luke's Medical Center down in Denver. I was a financial analyst, grew to a manager of the department. We had our first son, the job was moving, and I took actually a year off, which is what my mother wanted. My mother every day would call and go, when are you going to quit and take care of your baby? At a certain point, long story, my husband came home one day and I had pattern vacuumed the carpet. He didn't notice, and I was not real happy about that, which is really a scary thing. And he looked at me and he said, I think it's time for you to go back to work. And I said, I think so too, because it's time. And I answered the ad, a teeny tiny ad in a paper. Yes, there were ads in papers before, not just online. And it was for a little company called Remax. And I took the job. I was a financial analyst in the accounting bullpen in 1987. And since that time, I have had 11 different titles. I've grown up in the company to where I am now, to CEO. When I started with the company, we had about 12,000, 14,000 agents in 2 countries. We're approaching 100 countries now and nearing 100,000 agents worldwide. And so I've seen tremendous growth in the company, and it's been a thrill to be able to see the change in our company, the change in the growth, the change in housing across the whole United States, and what impact we play on that. So, oh yeah, that's me in 1987. Let's skip that one. Okay, you can see me when I'm 16. We'll skip that. But let me give you a little glimpse of what Remax is about, and why it's so different, and what I love about it. Because what's unique about real estate is there's no glass ceiling. If you think about it, if a male is a Remax agent or a female is a Remax agent, if we both sell a home, the commission is the same. So women can earn as much or more than men. And so what I love is there is no glass ceiling. Plus, real estate agents are independent contractors, which means they're not employees. You're in business for yourself. You are an entrepreneur of your own business. And that gives you so much freedom. But the beauty of a franchise organization is you're in business for yourself, but you have a franchise organization, system, and service to be able to help you grow your business. So it's kind of like you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. And so RE/MAX was founded 41 years ago in Denver, Colorado. And as I said, we are now in nearly 100 countries. And so it's nice to have a Colorado-grown company right here. Our agents range from 18 years old to over 80 years old. On average, it's probably in the high 40s, age group, and it's very unique. 56% of our agents are women. There are more women than there are men, which is really interesting. Quick sidebar, a couple weeks ago, I was in Japan. We just sold the franchising rights of RE/MAX to open up in Japan. Of all the agents in Japan, all the real estate agents, only 3% are women. 3. And so we're excited that we will be able to open up doors for women to get into business there, which is really a goal of the entire government, is to get women to start to work again. So it's kind of interesting. So anyway, I want to talk about a bunch of different things today. But first thing I want to talk about is generations and what impact that has on the economy, on housing, on all that we do within business, because it's very unique right now. There are 4 very distinct generations that are out there. There are the matures, and I'm going to go through each one of these individually. But the matures are usually 69 and older. There are the baby boomers, which we've all heard about, Gen X, and then Gen Y. So it's interesting because each one of these generations, like you're all going to deal with, have different ways to communicate, different needs, different ways in which they do business, different ways in which they research things. Every single generation is very unique. And so as Gen Y comes into business, Gen Y is going to have to figure out, how do you really deal with baby boomers? How do you deal with the matures? Because think about it, if I'm a real estate agent and I want to communicate with a mature, I'm probably not going to be texting them a whole lot. And at the same time, is if I'm dealing with Gen Y, I'm not going to be on a phone call for half an hour with them. It's going to be more the emails, the texts, and things like that. So simple example, but there are very different needs, wants, and attributes of each of these generations. So we had a speaker. His name is Cam Marsden. His experience or his focus when he speaks is all about different generations. So I took a clip. It's only a couple minutes long, but it's about Cam talking about, in a very fun way, the differences in a few generations. So take a look.
Here's my group. This is Generation X. 45 million people in the U.S. Tend to be the most cynical, unhappy, unpleasant, and unlikable people you'll ever come across. That's kind of a generalization. But if you think about everyone you don't like, they're all Generation Xers. I have no doubt about that. A quick compare and contrast will spell this out very clearly. Now, let's talk first about the baby boomers. Baby boomers in this room. When you were a newborn baby, brand new, fresh, still steaming baby, how did you get home from the hospital? Likely like this, right? In a parent's arms on the front seat of the car. The car had a metal dashboard. The car had no seat belt. At the time, the reference to an airbag was Uncle Joe. Don't talk to Uncle Joe, he's an airbag. Don't let that guy, don't talk to him. It has no context like it has today. In baby boomers, if your parents truly loved you, brand new, fresh, still steaming baby boomer, if your parents truly loved you, they cracked the window while they smoked on the way home. You can see this, right? Baby boomers in this room, were you ever told that you were special and unique and different from everyone else? Probably not. If you ever heard something like that, it sounded something like this. What do you think, you're special or something? So it was actually an accusation to stand out. To be different was an accusation. And then today, let's go to the slides. Then today, we begin to see things like this. These are my daughter's ribbons from the swim meet this past summer. We have 8th, 10th, 7th, 9th, 8th, 7th, 5th, 11th, 10th, and a another 11th place ribbon. That's a talented child, isn't it?
Okay, you gotta laugh a little bit. For any baby boomers in the room, you remember cracking the window enough to let the smoke out? My father smoked cigars. It was like, please, Dad, could you crack the window? It's so true. And he goes on, he has a whole speech on this, but it is about the differences of Gen X and Gen Y and baby boomers and matures. And, the whole special thing that actually made me laugh because I've heard that before. So let's go through each of the generations because these are things you're going to need to know. And then we're going to go into housing and economy and a few different things that I'd love to share with you. But to start with, okay, matures, oldest generation. Excuse me, they're 69 years of age or older. There are 35 million of them. They are the ones that remember the Great Depression. This is my parents' age group. Patriotism, dedication, hard work, sacrifice, experiences. The best teacher, damn it, is that kind of personality. That's okay. That's what they were grown up with. They didn't have a lot. They had to work hard to get what they had. They made sacrifices, and there wasn't a whole lot of fluff in their life. And it's interesting. They're very team-oriented. It isn't about me. It's about how do we grow and get what we want. Think about how do you, as you're getting business, how do you market to a mature? How do you communicate with a mature? What are the needs that they have? Because whatever business you decide to go into, whether it's, whatever it is, there are 4 distinct generations you're going to have to be able to work with. This is one. And when you know that dedication, sacrifice, experience, things like that are what motivate them, move them, and created what they are today, how are you going to tap into that and be able to communicate with them, market to them, or get the business with them? Very interesting. Next one, baby boomers. Baby boomers, 80 million strong. You've heard it before that the baby boomers had the single biggest impact on the economy than any other generation to date. 80 million. And you look at it, they are World War II babies, a lot of them. So age 50 to 68, you can see the years in which they were born. Just rather interesting. They right now, because of their age group, they are the ones who are the bosses out there in the business world. They have been looked at as workaholics. Don't let too much get in the way. Got to focus on work is all important. Very competitive, usually very optimistic. They dominate the workforce right now just because of their sheer numbers and that the age they are, logically the ones that are in the higher echelons of different companies. A lot of them define themselves by their job. It's more of what their title is versus who they are. But they're incredibly loyal to a team, very, very hardworking. But again, think about it. A lot of these folks were the past hippies. They actually were rebels from the mature generation. How do you communicate with a baby boomer? How do you market to a baby boomer? You know who the number one, this is a trick question, the number one generation that uses Facebook? Baby boomers. They love technology. They're definitely into it, into searching on the internet, all of it. And so their communication may not be strictly texting, but they know email, they know technology, and so baby boomers have had a huge, huge, huge impact on our economy overall. So next generation, the 4th one, Gen X. Gen X right now are 35 to 49 years old, and they're only 60 million. Actually, that number, I take that back. It's not it is 48 million. So you have 80 million baby boomers, you have 48 million who are Gen X. And Gen X is kind of a different group. It's much, much smaller. The birth rate went down in the 60s and the 70s. That's why there are less to that. They're stereotyped as being somewhat unmotivated, kind of an attitude of, well, you know what, prove it to me. And these are general things that overall people look at when they think of Gen Y. Obviously, think back to the 60s and the 70s of questioning authorities, and you know, we heard it so much of who are their heroes right now. This is actually the first generation, Gen X, that to date have not, how do I say this, have not been as successful as their parents had been. Every other generation prior to this, the newer generation was more successful than the previous generation. They just haven't gotten there yet because the baby boomers being so big, so established in the business, they haven't been able to be as successful. Gen X also, they're friends with their parents. Very different than what baby boomers were with their parents. Baby boomers weren't close to their parents and hung out and knew all their parents' friends. It was like, hey, I'm out of here. Gen X are closer to the parents and good friends with their parents. And as I said, technology is a huge, huge part of Gen X. I mean, they are the first generation to truly embrace and use it in everyday life. And then you have Gen Y. How many in here are Gen Y? 19 to 34? A lot of you? Yeah, I figured it should be. So age, 19 to 34, as I said, but look at this, 77 million people. Almost as large as the baby boomers. And knowing how the baby boomers impacted our economy and what it added out there, think about it, Gen Y, or the Millennials, are as big, as strong, and as powerful moving into the economy as the baby boomers. This is truly the next generation. And so you look at it, and this generation, to a certain degree, has been protected by their parents. But they are very optimistic, they are very ambitious, very green focused, very environmentally focused, which is phenomenal. You know, you talk about it, the technology aspect of this generation, your generation, is, think how many times you text versus talk. It's very, I mean, you communicate with your thumbs, right? And it goes very, very quickly. But this is also the generation that felt the impact that hadn't been felt in a long time of 9/11, Columbine, Aurora. I mean, so many things that impacted us on our own soil, if you will, that a lot of generations prior to that had not felt. And so it really helped shape, because you think about those things. You talk about wanting instant communication, 24/7. How many of you sleep with your phone by your bed? Yeah, okay. Curious, how many of you have a home phone? Precisely. Yeah. You don't need a home phone, you got your cell phone, right? I'm curious, how many in here actually wear a watch to tell time? Ah, a few. Most use their iPhone for it. A watch is only now jewelry or decoration. It isn't to tell time, it's just to be cool. But it's really interesting. And so Gen Y is really the next generation. And the same thing here is, as we go to business, and there are a lot of baby boomers in business, how do you communicate with a Gen Y? It's interesting, I've talked about it a lot in real estate, but if a Gen Y is going to go out and look for a home, they are going to, number one, go online, search every listing they possibly can, decide what neighborhood they want to live in, and when they go in to meet a realtor, they're going to have the 5 homes that they want to see, correct? Now, a baby boomer and a mature a long time ago would go into the realtor's office and say, I would like a new home. Where do we start? And they would hand them a book, yay thick of homes, and you would flip through and go, isn't that a pretty house? Doesn't work that way anymore. Technology, it makes you a much smarter consumer, by the way. And you would walk in literally and say, okay, come on, let's go. And it makes it much easier for, like I said, a real estate agent, because you've already done all the research. In fact, before you even find what real estate agent you want to use, you will go to Facebook, LinkedIn, and everywhere else you possibly can, look them up and see if you have anything to relate with them. And that's how you're going to choose it. You're not just going to choose somebody blindly to work with. You're going to see, hey, what do you do in your free time? What do you do this and that? And that's how you make a connection, because Gen Ys are very connected. No longer is just going to a networking, party to exchange business cards ever going to work. Because that's about what can you do for me and what can I do for you. Now it's about, hey, be my friend on Facebook. Let's tweet, let's this and that. I want to know that I trust you, I like you, that we can communicate, and we can have a relationship before we're going to do business together. That changes the way business is done. It's very interesting. Talking a little bit about changes in real estate and what the different generations want. So there is a migration right now out of the suburbs and into urban areas. A lot of Gen Y especially want to live in areas that are walkable, that you can walk down to a restaurant, a bar, your dry cleaners is right there, and maybe there's a little grocery store nearby. You want to be in this bit of a hub where you've got friends, things are walkable, likable, nice and easy. What's interesting is baby boomers, now that the kids are out of the house, guess where they want to go? They want to go to urban areas too, which is really kind of ticking off the Gen Y because they don't want their parents living next door to them in the same neighborhood. So there's a little bit there, but there is always a change. So matures, for the most part, they're selling their last home. If they're in their 70s or 80s, a lot of time they're going into some form of not assisted living, but a living where they're near family or assisted living, and so they're not buying another home. They're selling, and that's it. You look at baby boomers. For the most part, for the last probably the last 7 years or so, if they wanted to sell the house, they weren't able to because they had the big house. The kids were gone, but the market was not going to allow them to do it because there really wasn't much of a housing market or demand for the bigger homes. So they got stuck holding on to this property. Now that the housing is coming back, they're the ones that want to sell the bigger home, and they want to move to a smaller home that's much more closer in and easier for them to manage. Gen X, they're the ones that are married, have kids, and they're the ones who want to buy the baby boomers home because now they need a yard, they need something a lot bigger, and they're going to be able to buy those properties. And then you've got Gen Y, who really right now maybe getting out of college, finding a place to live, starting to get married, not so much the kids on the way, but want to be more in that urban area with friends and close. So for me in the real estate business, I look at 4 generations and say, what do they really need? So I'm going to ask a quick question, just kind of in fun. Do you guys know why you're called Gen Y? No? All right, come on, I had to have a little bit of humor. Okay, thank you. All right, just the older people in here are laughing. All right, we'll move on. Usually I say, all those who are Gen Y, please stand up. And when I do, I play that. They slowly sink back into the chair. It was nice to you this time. All right, so let's talk again a little bit about some of the interesting thing that I think about millennials being constantly communicated, which to a certain degree is great, but to another degree, you never get to turn off. You never, ever get to be away from it and disconnect. And I believe that's something that this generation is going to have to learn. And it's a tough one. So, you account for, are you ready for this? $1.3 trillion in consumer spending. That's a lot, considering a lot of you are in college and not necessarily employed yet. But you account for 1.3 trillion. You are tech savvy, and you are connected, as I said, like no other generation before you. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, I can't even tell you all of the different ones. And so, you being connected, and it's all about relationships and not just networking, you are always out there finding out what other people are doing. As I said, I think one of the biggest things for Gen Y to be able to learn is to disconnect. I think it's funny sometimes. I get Facebook, and I don't get Facebook. How many of you, or even Twitter, how many of you really care if I have a plate of spaghetti for dinner tonight, and I take a photo of it and post it on Facebook? part I don't get. You do care? Thank you. Thank you. She's like, yeah, really. But I look at it and I think it's a phenomenal tool, but some of the stuff that's out there, to me, it's cluttered, it's noise. And I hope that we don't get so wrapped up in looking what other people are doing, living their lives, that we forget to live our own. And that's one of the things that the downfalls, I believe, of technology is just don't forget to disconnect from your own life. You can still post things out there, but make it relevant. But that's a baby boomer talking. So anyway, there is, as I said, sometimes it's just TMI, too much information out there. So you look back at the 4 generations, and they're very unique, very driven, all different points of view, different communications, and so on. So as you graduate, as you move out to the business world, how are you going to embrace each of the 4 generations? How are you going to work with 4 generations? You may have a coworker next to you who's in their 50s, or different ages. All of those is what's going to make your business that much better. So I'd like to go a little bit into housing, a little bit into the economy, to tell you where we got and how we got here. So what happened? This is kind of interesting because, let's see, 2006, which is 8 years ago, you guys, for the most part, would have been pretty young. And so for you to, do any of you in the Gen Y really remember an up-booming, incredible economy? You probably don't. You see some of the upswing, you've seen a lot of the down, the Great Recession, all that's happened there. And so it's you learning. The Great Recession to you is almost like the Great Depression was to my parents. You learn how to be lean and smart, and you don't have to spend too much, and all of those things that I hope really will carry you through going forward. And so what happened, kind of interesting, is we had the Great Recession and we had the housing bubble bust. So people say housing got us into the Great Recession. The reality is some bad lending practices did. Lenders made borrowing money way too easy. And you could borrow money without proving you got a job. Take, for instance, a mortgage. I had reports and reports that I got from bankers of people who got mortgages that their monthly mortgage payment was more than their gross income for the month. And they had it on the report, and they still got mortgages. There were interest only. There were balloon payments after 5 years. There were adjustable rates. There were so many designer loans that caused problems. And here's what happened. There was so much lending going on. It was so easy to get money. It was fairly cheap. Housing started to grow. And people were buying homes and flipping them and selling them before there was a nail in a piece of wood. Because they treated a house as if it was almost a stock instead of treating it as a place to live. And so I'll show you some stats here in a few minutes. But because everybody wanted a house, construction started to soar, and we had unsustainable growth in the housing industry. And in 2006, it really burst, and that caused really a snowball effect of the overall economy. It's interesting that this recession we just got out of was the first time in history that housing did not pull us out of the recession. Always in the past, housing has been the one to get us out of the recession. And so we had, I'll tell you what, there was construction, everything was for sale. There was bidding wars, price wars. You actually had to wear a beeper if you wanted a house. And a real estate agent would beat you. You'd call, you'd say, such and such, you don't have time to see it, do you want to put a bid in? And they'd say yes, and hopefully they would get it. It was that insane because everybody thought I'm going to buy it, and then before I have to pay that balloon payment at the end, I'm going to be able to sell it, and I'm going to make all this money. Well, it didn't necessarily work that way. We had the bust, home valuations started to slide, mortgage rates were killed. So many homes fell into foreclosure, and unfortunately you add on top of it that there was a bust in the economy and unemployment. When jobs, lose homes. You know, and I think one of the things that I had to always remember is we talk about distressed properties or a distressed market. And the reality is, it's distressed families. It wasn't just distressed properties, because every home that got foreclosed upon had a family in it, had someone in it. And even though we couldn't keep them in their home, if we could assist them in selling it so their debt wasn't hit, or if they could move somewhere else, I mean, that was almost our responsibility. And it really played into what happened in the economy. So let me show you, let's get that, sorry. This one is interesting to me, and it shows you the magnitude of what the lending did to our economy. So, if you look over here, it's from 2006 to 2012. The purple mountain, if you will, all of the purple that you see were subprime loans that needed to reset each one of those months. So this is about loans that were resetting. Look at that. It was almost $20 billion of subprime loans were being reset every month at the peak. $20 billion. Then you move along, and it wasn't so much subprime, then it was called Alt-A, option arms, and those were those designer loans where, you know, no interest, and it was adjustable rate, but not for a long time out. They were crazy. They shouldn't have been there. So these two mountains of loan resets, this is what caused foreclosures. Because these people lost jobs, as their mortgage reset from basically a nothing payment to a payment they couldn't afford, they lost their home. They lost jobs, and most of these went into a foreclosure. When I started looking at this chart, it was 2006. I had two mountains to climb in the real estate business. And now, we're in 14. So the subprimes have moved through the pipeline. All of these adjustable rates have readjusted. The nice thing about it is when they did adjust, because mortgage rates were so low, it didn't have as bad an impact as probably earlier when the mortgage rates hadn't reduced yet. But when you look at $20 billion a month resetting, that was a huge impact on our economy, and that's why we started to see the economy really fall apart. So you look at existing home sales. In a normal year, on average, 5 million properties are sold annually. 5 million existing homes, sell a home, buy a home. That's normal. But with that fury of all that easy money to get and all that was going on, that ballooned to 7 million properties a year. From 5 million to 7 million. That's huge. You can see it hit in 2006. We hit the peak, and that's where the bubble, it burst. And you can see what happened is it just totally fell off. 2009, the government stepped in and said, okay, we somehow have to stop this free fall. Now, I'm not a big fan of government intervention in things. I do believe in a free market, and the market needs to balance itself out. Truly do. But somebody had to put the brakes on in some way, and what they said was, we'll give a tax credit. So, the first tax credit was if you were a first-time home buyer, you would get $8,000, or there was a formula. And that started to increase. So first-time home buyers who had been sitting on the sideline saying, at the peak of the bubble, there's no way I can afford a home, the prices are high. Prices fell, now maybe I can afford a home, hey, mortgage rates are low, and I'm going to get a tax credit back. And it brought buyers who were sitting on the sideline into the market to buy homes. You can see uptick. They did it twice. The first one was for first-time home buyers. The second one was for first-time home buyers and then move-up buyers, which was good. And it helped, it put the brakes on the slide in the housing. But as soon as they were done with that, we had brought buyers from the future in to take advantage of the tax credit, and you see what happened. It started to slow off again, and then it's starting to grow. So now we are truly in a recovery market. But when you look at it like this, you can see the huge impact housing has on our economy. Another interesting thing is for every home that is bought or sold, $60,000 goes into the economy. whether it's fixing up the home to buy it, buying trash cans and new towels and everything else once you move in, commissions and having your house appraised and having, when they check out your house, I forgot the word, it's a big word.
Inspection.
Thank you. You're listening. The inspection. All of that, can happen. $60,000 per home goes into the economy. If you think about it, we had a high 7,000, we went down to 7 million. We went down to 4 million. So 3 million properties at $60,000 a piece, the hundreds of billions of dollars that was not going into the economy to keep the economy alive and well really hurt. Housing has such a huge impact on the overall economy. Next, look at this. I love this graph just to show visually the impact of the number of jobs that were lost. So this goes back to 2007. Between 2008 and 2010, look at the number of jobs. This is monthly. At the worst of the job loss, we were losing 800,000 jobs a month. 800,000. We lost nearly 9 million jobs in that recession. That's what that deep V is. Then you see that quick blip up. Guess what? That was census. That was in 2010, we had to do a census, we hired people part-time, and then look what happened next. They got let go because they were only part-time work. So what we're seeing now is we're starting to grow again. We have not grown back all of the jobs that we lost in that recession. But when you look at this, you see the huge impact just in a graph alone of how many jobs were actually lost. Right now, we're at average about 180,000 jobs per month that we're gaining back. At the peak, when you're losing 800,000 jobs, it's going to take us a little bit to get back. The interesting thing, the unemployment rate right now is it's 6.6, 6.7%. We hit a high of 10% in 2010. 10% is a lot, but what's interesting is the 6.5% we're at right now, or 7% we're at right now, does not include people who have lost, or I'm sorry, people who have given up looking for a job, or those who are working part-time and don't have a full-time job. If you were to add that in, it's really closer to 12 to 14%. But it's still, we're on a good path, we're beginning to add jobs back, things are going very well. So, I'm going to flip through a couple more pages, and then I just want to open up for Q&A, because I think that's a heck of a lot more fun than just looking at graphs and talking about some of these things. But, I really wanted to sit down and say, okay, what do you guys want in a job? And so I'm going to open it up to you. What do you guys want in a job? When you go out and you look, is it, vacation, flexibility, casual work Fridays? Do you want, daycare in the office? Your turn to talk. And I'm going to pick on you first because you are looking so darn excited. What do you want in a job? Besides the salary?
Flexible hours.
Flexible hours, that's a good one.
I would go to culture.
Culture, what kind of culture?
Just kind of like easygoing a little bit, but still get the work done.
Good culture, easygoing, but still get the work done. I like that. Anybody want to work for Google here? Yes, I like think. Yes, she fit. Heart. Pink heart. Yeah, sorry I had to pick on you. Well, it's shocking pink. How could I not? Okay, I know you want a salary, a yacht, hot tub in your office. Okay, you think about it for a little bit. Okay, who else? Yes?
Be able to travel.
Be able to travel. Very nice. That's a good, that's a good one. Who else? Yes?
Have a purpose.
Have a purpose. That's awesome. No, that's true. If all you do is work just to make salary, then it's work. If you have a purpose and you have fun and you like what you do, it's not a job anymore. So great answer. What else? Anybody?
Just like you were saying, the communication piece and the trust. I want to trust my coworkers, but also I don't want to just sit down in front of the computer. I want to have a one-on-one with my client.
Very good. It's trust, and it's being able to communicate, not being just in a a cube. You know, we call them little gophers, where people step up over their cubes and they talk to each other. It's kind of like being little gophers. So, what do you have in your jobs that you like?
We're retired.
Even better. Okay, see, that's perfect. So you've been there, done that, you're retired now. Anybody else? I'm kind of.
I have a question. How far are you willing to commute for that job?
Good question. You know what? That is one of the first questions that people, when they go to find a home, is how far do I have to drive? And on Remax.com, we are now just adding, what's the app? INRIX, INRIX, you know, it does the traffic app. But we're adding that to our site so that when you look at a property, you put in where you work, and it tells you what the commute time is with traffic and, you know, during the high business hours, because that is such a big piece of it. So, anybody else? Yes?
How about perks?
Perks. What kind of perks would you like?
You know, good benefits, longevity.
Yeah.
Probably the most important one is value as a person.
Yeah.
What do you bring to the company?
Very nice. Value as you as a person. What do you bring? I love that. I'll tell you a couple things that I started at Remax. And I'm so privileged to be there 27 years, like I said, in 11 different jobs as I grew through the company. But I was just named president of the company. This was back in 2002. And because I was a woman president, I had an employee come in to me. And actually, in the course of 10 days, I had 2 women who were abused by their spouse/boyfriend and 1 who was raped. And because I was a woman, they were able to come and talk to me. We were able to get legal help. But I went, and I started once a year. We had what we called Ladies' Day, and I brought in speakers specifically, because the majority of our employees are women, specifically about women issues. From health to self-defense to finances to you name it. But that, to me, was a perk to the women, because women don't always have examples on how to handle those things and to not get yourself in bad situations. And as a woman, I was able to do that, and then the guys had a fun time doing some other things. For the heck of it, 3 years ago, I don't know what came over me, but I decided to start Bring Your Dog to Work Day. And it's a fun perk, let me tell you, for everybody except the maintenance staff. We have, in the morning, we have sniff and greet out on the grass. And last year we had 75 dogs, and I swear 2 ponies because the dogs were jumping. And everybody has their dogs. They go out there, and I'm walking out. And here are the 2 folks that, maintenance folks in our building. And I said, "Oh, you guys excited?" They looked at me and went, "Seriously?" There's 75 dogs in our building. And so the morning, I'm in my office, and you will see a dog, you see a ball, and you will see a dog flying down the hallway. And it is a hoot. And in the afternoon, there's a group walk, so it stops traffic when you see 75 people walking 75 dogs down and down. And then in the afternoon, when you walk around, there is a dog crashed in every single office and every single cube. It's just one of those funny things, but those are intangibles, and it's the good perks of benefits and vacations and 401k and all that, but there's also the other perks of, I want to be a real person and I want to have fun. It's like that. I want to communicate. Those are important things to have. If you got to pay your dues in the beginning, yeah, you do. But look for what the culture is. So, in addition to that, some of the things that I think, as I talk to other people, is flexible work schedule, work-life balance. It isn't about being a workaholic anymore. Obviously, you want good technology, good salary, opportunity for growth, promotion, travel. Being an entrepreneur, being able to run your own business, I think is really key. Community service and charitable giving is huge. We started at Remax, we call it the 12 Days of Giving. And we set up times where we actually go to different charities and we say, okay, opening for 20 people who wants to sign up, give them the day off, and they get to go work at whatever that charity is. It's about balance and being able to give back, and then obviously a very healthy culture of fun and respect and trust and communication. So those are some of the things that we look at that we think are really important out there, just in having a job. And then last thing I wanted to hit on is what I think it takes to succeed in business, and I don't care what generation you are, is the attitude of don't give up. I mean, that is key. You work hard, you don't give it up, and you focus on what you need to do. Respect others. Respect other, whether it's ethnic, sex, generations, whatever it is, it has to have mutual respect. Because if you give it, you'll get it. Put yourself outside of your comfort zone. I remember graduating high school, and an uncle who came up to me and he said, Margaret, and I'm going to college, I have no examples of this, and he came to me and he said, picture your life, your comfort zone is a circle around you. And every time you push yourself out of your comfort zone, your world grows. And so never stop pushing yourself outside of that comfort zone to do things that maybe you didn't think you could do, because when you do, your comfort circle gets bigger. Forgive other people for mistakes. I believe that if you don't make mistakes in work, then you are not pushing yourself or pushing the company far enough. If you never make a mistake, then you're playing it safe. Mistakes are okay. You learn from them and you go on. I tell every single person who works with me, yes, I have the CEO title, but I want you to disagree with me. I would like you to stand up for what you believe in, because usually, if you feel that strongly, you're right. And so don't be afraid to share the ideas that you have out there. Get along with others, set goals, make a plan, but don't get so strict on what you want that you miss the opportunities that come along the way, because you never, ever, ever know what's going to happen. And you know what? Love what you do. Because you spend more waking hours with the people you work with than you do your own family, so you better love what you do and enjoy the people that you work with. Otherwise, like I said, it really becomes work. And last, most important thing to me is have fun, laugh. You know what? Life's too short not to. I mean, these you can have no matter where you are. Even when I worked in the factory with my sisters, we had fun. We sit and talk. I mean, all those things, it doesn't matter. You can bring that ray of sunshine into wherever you are. And when you do these things, other people around you do too. So with that, I just want to open it up for Q&A and have a little bit of my water. And don't be shy. There is not a college student here that's shy. So, anything, any questions? Yes?
What would you say that you like the most about your job, and what do you not like about it?
Okay. Yes. What do I like the most? What do I like the least? What I like the most is to be able to give people opportunities and watch them grow when they didn't even know or believe that they could grow to that. What I like the least is having to fire people. But I've also learned that, how do I say this? Is trying to avoid letting somebody go is the worst thing you can do. Because everybody else around is saying, why are they still here? And I mean, when somebody really, for whatever reason, needs to go, and I can't tell you, I had a boss one time that just would avoid it and kept somebody on for a couple of years too long, and as soon as fired him, everybody else said, what took you so long? He was afraid to fire him because, oh my God, everybody's going to be upset, when it was exactly the opposite. And the part I hate about it is I hate to have a negative impact on somebody's life like that, because I know what a change it is. But as a leader, it's some of the things that I have to do. But giving people opportunity is, to me, the greatest thing. I love speaking to groups, meeting cool people. So that's it. Another, anyone? Yes?
I've read a couple of news articles saying that mortgage loans are going to be harder to get for kids or for millennials because there's new rules enacted in 2014. How do you see that affecting us in the real estate market as a whole?
A lot of the rules that are coming out are from the Dodd-Frank bill that Congress passed, and it's about qualified mortgages and so on. Right now, lending is a bit too tight, but any millennials, whoever the newest generation is, always has a bit of a tough time until you get a track record of employment and steady income and things like that. But with the housing recovery coming in, they are beginning to loosen up some of those lending standards, and and I'm hoping that the impact is going to be very slight. Actually, it's got an article today, as a matter of fact, that said 1/3 of all residential real estate transactions that happened in 2013 were to millennials. 1/3 of them all. 1/3 of 5 million. So it isn't having a huge, huge impact. I'm trying to look. Yeah, watch smaller lots and things like that. So it has an impact, but it really hasn't stopped the ability to buy. So, anybody? Yes.
In regards to home ownership, is RE/MAX utilizing any particular initiatives or strategies, let's say multicultural diversity initiatives to bring ownership to the marginal groups like, let's say, Latinos?
Sure. Well, what we do, and our goal is, we have, so, in the entire world, we have 6,400 RE/MAX offices. Of the 6,400, only 20 of the offices are company-owned offices. All the rest are independently owned by entrepreneurs who bought the franchise rights, which means they're independent business people. Our goal is to sell franchises to Latino and African American and every other ethnic that we can think, because different pockets of the country have different influx from other countries and so on. And so if you have office owners by providing, they recruit agents, agents bring on their clientele, and so we really encourage, that the more we can create jobs, the better it's going to be able to buy home. Now, can we just specifically go out and try and attract certain things? We really can't, because it's somewhat antitrust, but we are equal across the board. So we want to hire as many as we can, hire as many different diversity cultures to be as inclusive as we can, and at the same time service all that we can. And we just try to track all of our advertising is multicultural. We are part of different programs that are different cultural areas, and many of our offices go specifically. So we try and touch as much as we can, but we can't do an advertising and campaign that just says we want this or we want this. So yes.
What does a franchise cost?
A franchise in a metropolitan area costs $28,000, and that is to buy the franchise rights and to be able to use the RE/MAX marks. And then the person who buys the franchise then goes and gets their building, and they go out and start to recruit agents from there. But that $28,000 gets you all of the systems, the support, and the service from RE/MAX and the franchise rights. In a small town, it's $15,000. That's roughly. Would you like to buy? Because I would be happy to talk to you.
The reason I asked the question is I know
Oh, good.
they used to be 8,500.
Yeah, that was way back when. It's a 41-year-old company.
Yeah,
Cars used to be that too.
a long time ago.
Yeah, good. Yes.
Appreciate your perspective very much. Just moved to Colorado. Can you mention a little bit about sort of housing trend in Colorado?
The housing trend in Colorado. So Colorado has actually done way better than a lot of the country in the downturn. You look at California, Florida, East Coast, Las Vegas, Phoenix, I mean, they went in the tank. Colorado didn't. They went down some. We are back to pretty much the level we were in 2006 before the market went down. Because we didn't go down so low, it didn't take so much for us to be able to come back. We have low inventory, meaning there aren't a lot of homes for sale right now. And it's typical supply and demand. If you don't have a lot of supply, but you have high demand, it pushes prices up. Pushing prices up right now is a good thing for us in that homeowners who owed more money than their home was worth, now that the price goes up, what their home is worth and what they owe is the same, now they can put it on the market to sell, which adds to the inventory, which will stabilize the prices. So some of those things are all self-correcting, but Colorado, because it didn't have the lows, is actually very good. We only have 2.7 months of inventory. Equal buyers and sellers is 6 months of inventory. So low inventory, there's a lot of demand out there right now to be able to buy. That's stand. Yes?
How do you think new construction is going to affect the market in the future?
Perfect. We need it. So part of the housing, the highest point at the peak, new home construction and new home sales, not the 7 million I was talking about, was 1.4 million. It absolutely dropped off to, you ready for this, 200,000. So new homes went from 1.4 million down to 200,000. We are underbuilt in new homes tremendously because not everybody wants an existing home. They want to buy a new home somewhere. New homes start. So those are the permits that builders go out to start homes, hit 900,000 in the last month or two, which means builders, they're watching the economy, they've already lost, a lot went out of business, said the economy is strong enough that I'm going to build. And so you're going to see a lot of growth in construction and commercial also. That's going to help a lot in our economy. We lost, I want to say it was like 2 million construction jobs when, we went from 1.4 down. 2 million construction jobs went away because nobody was building anything. It'll be nice to see some of that construction come back in. So, yes?
You would happen to have data on how many millionaires came out of this last recession?
How many millionaires came out of it?
In this last recession?
I have no idea. No, I never saw data on that.
You should look up sometime. It's a tremendous amount
Really?
of money that exchanged hands in this last recession.
Interesting. So those who had money knew how to make money off of it, and other
You've
people
heard the
didn't.
name John Dillingham.
Mm-hmm.
He's the grandfather of foreclosures in Denver.
Oh, yeah.
Bought the mushroom house up on the hill.
Yeah, the sleeper house.
Yeah, the sweet
Yeah.
house. He made a fortune.
I'll tell you kind of a funny story. So I was on a real estate panel in probably 2009, and I'm with an economist, and we're talking about housing, and I said as the prices were dropping, this is a great time to buy. Don't be fooled. Everybody would go, yeah. And this guy stood up in the audience. He goes, you realtors are all alike. You always say it's a great time to buy a house. When is it not? And before I could say a thing, the economist next to me said, 2006. That was it. But it's a good time to buy. I don't have the graph on this one. I did a speech earlier. But mortgage rates right now are at 40-year lows. 40 years lows. I bought my first home at 14.5%, and I was thrilled because it went higher than that. People adapt to the market you're in. And so when people go, oh my goodness, the mortgage rate went up, it's almost, it's 3.9, it's 4%, I have 14%. Don't be fooled, these are 40-year lows. Affordability is the 5th best in history, and prices are still moderate. So it's, you've got to look long term. What people forget is when you buy a home, you are buying a place to live, you are not buying something to flip and make money on. You are buying a home. And remember that. So, others?
In Japan, they have 100-year mortgages.
And in China, you don't get to buy the land. You only get to buy the house and rent the land.
That's right.
That's,
And they're
oh yeah.
also-
Yeah. And I was, like I said, I was just in Japan. It was fascinating. So, anything else?
Question.
Yes.
As the economy recovers
Mm-hmm.
and interest rates are being held artificially low to encourage that, do you have any fear, do you see anything with the high demand and the low supply of what the market looked like, say, in 2005?
I don't see the same conditions because 2005 was unsustainable growth of the demand for housing and the demand for things. What we're seeing now is, I really believe people were fat and happy now, that leaner and smarter. But what's happening with the Federal Reserve, so the Federal Reserve, in order to stimulate the economy, started doing the Treasury, buying $85 billion a month, they're buying of Treasuries. And they've done it. It's the taper that you guys all read about. And so the question was, when do we stop buying? Because they knew it would have an impact on the stock market. So they announced that they were going to begin the taper, and they went from $85 billion down to $75 billion per month buying up the Treasuries. really didn't have that big of a blip. Yeah, there was a little bit. It's like, okay, it's finally started. And now we're seeing that, and I believe they're going to lower it again. What that means to me is the Federal Reserve, who is so tremendously cautious, would not do that unless the economy was in a very strong recovery. I'm glad they're doing it. Get out of the bond buying business, get the Fed balance sheet back to where it was, and allow a normal, stable market to just, whatever the new normal is, let's get to that point. And so, I was at a lunch and spoke too, and one of the questions was talking about, well, why did they do it? Didn't they really have an impact on our recession and keep it longer? And my answer was that the Federal Reserve only has tools to fight inflation. Our inflation rate was at 1, maybe 2%. And that's with buying, think about it, not buying, printing $85 billion of new money every single month in order to buy the treasuries. The whole point of it is they're trying to get money out into the economy to generate GDP and keep things going. And they turned on the printing press. And so I just lost my train of thought. What was I just saying? Come on, tell me what I was just saying. Okay, tell me what I was just saying. This is over here going. I'm still back on what I want in my job.
So the repeal of the crisis.
Yeah, could you cut that? All right. But anyway, the fact that the taper is going on to me is a very good thing. Oh, I know. Because they only have tools to fight inflation, and where we were was we were on the verge of deflation. And if you have deflation, there are no tools, and it's exactly what Japan had. And that's why they had a decade called the lost decade. Because all it was deflation, and as price continued to drop, people would sit there and say, well, I'm not going to buy anything now because it's going to go cheaper. And nobody would buy, and prices would go down, and businesses would go out of business. And so, to me, putting the money into the economy to try and stoke the fire of the economy is a good thing, but now it's time to get back out because the economy is strong. I think we're done.
Well,
Yeah.
Margaret, we're so appreciative of you
thank you.
coming
This is
up
fun.
and talking with us. So let's have a round of applause. I know many of you have other classes to catch, so